There are only so many hours in a day, and sometimes, even with a second job, it can be hard to make enough money to achieve financial freedom for yourself and your family. One way to get past this problem is to disconnect time from money and start generating passive income. That's why in this episode of the podcast, I talk with former practicing attorney Tanisha Souza about what she calls an income snowball that can get you that extra income you need. My guest today is Tanisha Souza, a lawyer, author, patent holder, professional speaker, wealth and passive income coach, and entrepreneur. She has a passion for teaching people how to live their dreams by quickly building passive income without risk. Tanisha quit the practice of law after replacing her income with passive income from real estate, and she launched Tardis Wealth Strategies, a full service wealth and passive income coaching firm. She's also the author of the book Creating Your Income Snowball, the passive investing cheat code for mastering wealth. Welcome to the show, Tanisha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to building that snowball. But before we get into this, I got to ask, just from that introduction and everything, and being a lawyer myself, I can see the retirement light at the end of the tunnel in a couple of years. And I've known a couple people that have sort of left the practice of law to do other things. Uh, I don't know that I could really, yes, speaking of you, I don't know that I could really do that. I mean, I worked so darn hard to get that degree and pass the bar exam and get that license. To walk away, I don't know. I mean, to retire is one thing, but that's a
Yeah.
tough decision. What led to that decision? What had you saying, nope, nope, don't want to be a lawyer, want to help people with their income and their finances?
Well, it was one thing came before the other.
Hmm.
I was not really into finance. I mean, part of the reason why I became a lawyer was because I thought, well, I'm really good at speaking, I'm good at writing, good at arguing. So I said maybe I'll be a lawyer. And then when I decided to pursue that, I realized it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I grew up on LA law, so that's just dated me, right? So it looked very exciting on TV, and it's not really, it wasn't like that for me. So
Oh,
it was stressful. I mean, I figured since you're a lawyer too, I think you know a little bit of what I'm talking about,
yes.
right? They glamorize it a little bit more than, than it actually is. So I was pretty stressed out. I mean, I just didn't want to I didn't want to do it. I realized I was a newlywed at the time. I was working ridiculous hours. I was working for a large firm, so I was probably working, well, 60 hours a week when I moved to Hawaii when I was in LA, and I was long distance from my then fiance. I was working more like 70, 80 hours a week. And I was getting paid over $100,000 a year. But then when I moved to Hawaii, I had to take a 40% pay cut. So $60,000, working a little bit less than what I was working, but still not being able to see each other. So I thought, well, you know what? I know I want to have a family. I know I want to stay married. So I have to do something else because there's no life work balance here. So
Yeah.
I have to, and it was what the type of work that I was doing was kind of negative. I mean, I guess if you're doing contract law, it might be something different or some other type of law, but the law that I was practicing was pretty, cover your butt kind of thing. And it was for the clients and it was very negative and I'm a pretty positive person, so that just didn't fit with my personality. So that's why I needed to get out.
Well, you indicated you're kind of aging yourself with reference to LA law, but I will do you one better and I will age myself way past you. I grew up on Perry Mason with Raymond Burr and those guys and
You got
wow.
me.
And that was, yeah, I talk about the different generations. You have the Perry Mason generation, the LA Law generation, the Ally McBeal generation, the Suits generation. There are all these legal shows that are popular that to an extent, although I don't know that Suits really glamorized the practice of law, but certainly you can get caught up in it. Uh,
Mhm.
and I can see, I mean, yeah, earning over 100,000 a year in LA, then you move to Hawaii, which may well have an even higher cost of living, and you had to take a 40% pay cut. So
Yeah.
the pay cut combined with higher cost of living must have really killed you. Why the pay cut? Did you have to, were you working remotely from Hawaii? Did you take the Hawaii bar or?
Yeah, I took the Hawaii bar, I took the California bar, passed that, worked there, then took the Hawaii bar, passed that, moved back after my husband proposed to me.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so it's just how it is. The pay is just lower. It's lower in every industry in Hawaii. They
Huh.
just don't pay as well. I can't explain it, but that's just how it is here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a shame you got disillusioned with it, but the point is you're happier. And if you are unhappy in the practice of law, I can certainly more understand you're moving on. Uh,
Yes.
but let's talk about snowballs. So
Yes.
now I've heard a lot about the snowball method of paying off debt, but you've written a book about how you can build income like a snowball. So I'm guessing from the title it has something to do with passive investing. But what exactly is an income snowball?
Yes. So the income snowball, it's an accelerated investment system
Mhm.
that I created, and what it does is allows you to reach financial freedom in an average of 5 to 10 years. And it's utilizing a patented structure that I've created. I actually invented a calculator that can utilize every single element of it and predict with pretty much degree of certainty when you can be financially free. And by financially free, what I mean is when your passive income covers all of your bills, right? All of your living expenses. Once that happens, technically you don't have to work. So if you love what you do, you're a lawyer that loves it, or you just, whatever you do, you love it, great. It's wonderful to not have to work.
Mhm.
And when I hit that point, I got to tell you, it changed everything for me. I mean, it's not like I wanted to stay at the firm at that point, but my stress completely went away. So, that's the reason why you want to become financially free. Not so that you can stop working necessarily if you love what you do. It's really about getting to that place where you don't have to work is optional. And that happened for us within 2 years of our marriage. But the income snowball is a much faster, easier system than what we did, flipping homes and everything to get to the point where we could become financially free. I mean, I definitely wouldn't recommend that. That's another job. So if you have a job where you work a lot of hours, which I did, and then you do another job like flipping homes, then that's not, that's not the vision for you the rest of your life. You don't want to do that for the rest of your life.
Well, it's not
So
it's not entirely it's not really passive
it's not
because
passive at all. It's
yeah,
a job.
because you're involved in, you're buying low and selling high with real estate. So you're
Mhm,
involved. There's a fair amount of risk in purchasing the home. Oftentimes, you don't know everything that's wrong with it and what your costs of flipping it's going to be,
mhm.
and necessarily what you can sell it for afterwards. So you've got a high risk, lots of work, labor intensive business that I would not exactly call passive income.
Oh, it's not at all. And in fact, I would call it insanity. I mean, we were absolutely insane to do that. We were very blessed that it all worked out. And so we were able to turn that last property that we flipped, and that wasn't actually the last one, but one of the properties that we flipped into a strip mall. And the cash flow from that strip mall was actually more income than I made at the firm, the
Wow.
cash flow, the net. So that's what made us financially free. And but like I said before, you can reach it in a number of ways, right? There's so many ways to reach financial freedom. What we were looking for when I created the income snowball was I was looking for a faster technique, something that anybody could use and that could get them there at accelerated pace. I mean, if you're going to just buy real estate, for example, and do the debt snowball, the thing you mentioned, where you take, the excess cash flow, maybe pay off the mortgage or keep going until you reach enough money to buy the next property with a down payment, just keep piling up the cash flow and
Mhm.
not using it. It would take you like 20 some odd years typically to get the cash flow you need just doing that.
Mhm.
Um, so we're looking for something simpler. I was looking for something more straightforward. So, there's a few different elements to the income snowball. I'll tell you what they are. It's utilizing a little bit of leverage, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But it also uses what I call short-term amortized income investments. That's a pretty long thing that I made up, but but that it describes exactly what those investments are. So you definitely need that. That's a key ingredient. You need the calculator, and then you need some of your own cash flow. So those four things are kind of the main ingredients of how this whole thing works and what makes it unique in the first place. So,
Well, walk us through it then. So we've got using the leverage. We've
yes.
got, I believe, so short-term amortized investment,
Yes.
and then your calculator, and then the cash flow.
Yes.
So walk us through the first step, leverage. What are we talking about there?
Okay, so one thing always want to caution people about using leverage in general, right? Because leverage, if you don't know what you're doing or you use the wrong type of leverage, is always going to be it's going to be risky. So I'll give you an example. When you're buying real estate, for example, everybody understands leverage in terms of if I want to buy rental property, I'm going to put a down payment, I'm going to get a loan, a mortgage for 30 years. And then I'm going to get cash flow. Hopefully, if I've done my investing right, my due diligence, I bought a good property, I'm going to get some extra money from that property every month. And so the leverage, I've actually purchased an asset because the leverage is not affecting my cash flow. It affects my cash flow, it reduces it a little bit. But what it does is it gives me more buying power. If I only have $30,000, I'm going to buy a $100,000 property using that $30,000 as a down payment and using the leverage. But here's the thing. And so that's the right way to do investing, right? Typically real estate investing. However, the risk is in that mortgage. So if something happens and your renter doesn't pay, then you're in a situation where you've got to come out of pocket to cover that mortgage payment. So if there was no mortgage on it, or as long as you have enough cash flow, or if it's a good enough investment, then you're going to be okay for the most part. But you're going to need to have consistent, predictable income to cover when the renter doesn't pay. And that's another way the income snowball comes in as well.
Well, let's define a term a little bit because I'm still a little unclear on what you mean by leverage.
Yes.
Could you define that term and how it works within what you described?
Okay, so we're talking about a revolving line of credit. And typically, and there's different ones, different types, but an interest-only line of credit is going to be the best type, one that revolves, one that you can use, pay it off, and then use it again. And what we're talking about is being able to pay it off in a very short period of time because having a 30-year mortgage is a 30-year risk, right? 15-year mortgage is a 15-year risk, but and people will get the 30 because it makes their payments lower on the mortgage so that their cash flow is higher on a rental, for example. But when you're talking about the income snowball, which is not necessarily a real estate investing strategy, you can use it to buy lots of real estate. You can actually accelerate buying anything, any type of investment with the income snowball. But the idea is to utilize a revolving line of credit to purchase the short-term amortized income investments. And this is a powerful, powerful tool. I didn't even know that these types of investments existed until my mother. My mother told me about one of them, and I did some research. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then I realized there's a whole world out there of these types of investments that people can utilize for this system. And as we speak, people that, there are companies that are making investments specifically for the income snowball. We've been in business for over 20 years, so we have a large client base, and people see the need and they see the results of what it does and how quickly people have retired using it. And that's the reason why they're creating products specifically for it now. So
So
it's
you
been
buy
it.
a home with some upfront cash, and then
Mhm.
you make interest only payments. So you
No, no,
leverage.
no, no, no. We're
Okay.
not buying homes. Nope. This is not real estate. Nope.
Oh, oh, okay. I'm
We're not
sorry.
buying
That
real
that's
estate.
where I am confused. So
Yeah.
what are we purchasing then? Because you talked about rental income and everything.
Yeah, I was making a comparison. So
Okay.
let me break it down. So what I'm saying is that with real estate, when we talk about leverage, we're talking about usually a 30-year mortgage. With
Mhm.
the income snowball, we're talking about a line of credit, which could be life insurance, cash value life insurance policy. A lot of our clients use that, which, I can explain why there's a lot of benefits to using that. Or you can use a revolving line of credit that you get from a bank or like a home equity line of credit or something like that. The key is the amount and the timing of how much you use on that line of credit because you've got to be able to pay it back within a certain amount of time. Now, let's talk about what those short-term amortized income investments are. Let me explain that because that I think I want to make sure everyone understands. If you take $5,000 and you invest in something at 8%, right, and it pays you monthly, it gives you monthly payments that are interest only, that's going to be $33 a month. You're going to get $33.33 a month, maybe for life, if it continued to pay 8% for the rest of your life. Okay. Not super excited about $33 a month. Okay. However, if you get a short-term amortized income investment, and I'll give you an example of one, prosper.com, for example, if you buy an investment like that,
What is
where
prosper.com? What?
prosper.com is peer-to-peer lending, right? So you've got business owners that are like, hey, I need, $10,000 for inventory, or you have someone who's consolidating their credit card debt. They want to get a loan, and they're credit-worthy borrowers, right? I mean, you can get some that are not, but you'd always want to do this for the credit-worthy ones. And what it does is they spread out the risk by you not loaning that one business person $10,000. You loan them
Mm,
$25. And a bunch of other people, 400 other people loan them $25. So now they have their $10,000 from 400 lenders. And you do that across hundreds or thousands of different borrowers. So your risk of default is very low. And especially if you get to choose the interest rate or the risk, the credit worthiness of your borrower. So if you want to choose somebody that has an A rating, it's going to be a lower interest rate. If you want to choose somebody that's a little bit riskier, then it's going to be a higher rate of return. But you don't need to do anything crazy with the income Snowball. It works with like 6% interest um, investments and 8% interest. You don't have to go wild and try to find something that's 14%. You can just do just basic and it really accelerates. And I'll explain why. So with these short-term amortized income investments, you're investing basically, and you're getting principal and interest payments like a bank does.
mm,
So you become the bank. You get principal and interest payments for a fixed period of time. So it could be 3 years, 5 years, 2 years. So
mm,
let's say it's 3 years, and it's that same 8% that we were just talking about, right? I said if you take 5,000, you invest in an 8% interest investment at interest only, you're going to get $33 a month.
mm,
But with this, you're going to get with a short-term amortized investment that's 3 years, you're going to get $157 a month for 3 years. Okay. Now think about that. That's 5 times the income you're getting from the other investment. And if you're buying this investment without your own cash, then both the principal and interest, you can use that to accelerate repayment of that line of credit. So you're using your cash flow plus the income from that investment to repay it. You can repay it so fast that way. Think about how long it would take you to pay off $5,000 for $33.33. I mean, it would take you a long time, even if you also added your own cash to that. So what happens is you're able to buy the next investment very quickly. Let's say 5 months down the road, 6 months down the road, you've paid that off, and now you're doing it again. Now you do a second investment. So if it was 6 months that it took you to do that, and you buy the second one, now you've got $157 times two. So you've got $300 a month coming in to pay off that same 5 grand, right? And it just keeps going on and on and on. So it's an interesting concept, but what I realized is, for example, if you're going to use leverage, you should never use it like the same type of leverage I'm talking about, a line of credit, to buy an interest-only investment because you're basically canceling out what you're buying. You're paying interest on the line of credit and you're getting interest on the investment, $33. Maybe you're
mm,
paying $20 on the line of credit.
mm,
So you're basically making $10, the spread on that. That's not what we're talking about. This is a cash flow type of arbitrage. And it works so well because all you're doing is stacking that income on top of each other and utilizing it very quickly. So in 1 year, someone can do, I call those flips whenever you pay off the line of credit and do the next investment. They can do 3, 4, 5 flips of that line of credit, whatever the size is that's right for them. The
mm,
calculator will help you figure that out. It actually runs all of that for you. You're able to utilize that to continue to buy more and more and more. And by the time that 3 years is up and that very first investment that you purchased has
mhm,
been fully repaid to you, you have so much income coming in from all the other investments you did over that 3-year period.
Mhm. So
Thousands of
essentially,
dollars.
if I'm
Yeah,
understanding correctly, I mean, it's like businesses can, get money from really micro investors, either the Kickstarter or crowdsource or something like that, where a whole bunch of people are investing a little bit of money. Here, you're sort of they're micro loans, so you've got
correct.
you're creating this person's borrowing a lot of money, but you're limiting your risk to a small amount, much smaller amount of money, and then but you're still amortizing that principal at a fairly decent interest rate, but over a shorter term. You mentioned like 3 years.
Yeah, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, there's some investments out there that are 18 months.
So
And
you
so
have, so you're lowering the risk because you don't have as much money invested, but you can also spread out the risk. So, like if you say, well, I've got $10,000 and I can lend 2,500 to four different people, then you're limiting the risk on each loan and then spreading out that risk over four of them.
that's
Then
right.
your turnover rate is fairly quick. So you're getting
Yeah.
back principal plus interest over a shorter period of time. So now
Mhm.
you have more money that you can then take some money out for your income or your living expenses, and then invest the rest even more, and then you grow and grow with more loans over a greater spread of borrowers, and that's where the snowball comes in, right?
That's right. Yes. And so what a lot of people will do, it's some people we talked about the different generations, right? The suits generation, like let's say, they're not as interested in financial freedom or quitting work, right? They don't necessarily want to do that, but they want to travel. They want to do a lot of traveling. They want to have a certain lifestyle. And so they want to be able to draw a certain amount of extra income to
Mhm.
do those things. And the income snowball can provide that. So it really doesn't matter what a person's goal is. If it requires income and a lot of it or monthly income, then it can do that. But typically you're going to have to get it going, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't happen in like 3 months. Now you can start using that money, right? You'll start slowing your income snowball down. But
Right.
if you go for a couple of years, what you'll see is you've got thousands of dollars. If you let's say that the cash flow you're putting in to assist, right? You have to put some cash flow in it.
Mhm.
And so some people it's going to be maybe 500 or 800 a month. Some people put thousands a month in because they have it.
Mhm.
So the line of credit they would use is way bigger than someone with a $500, $800 a month extra cash flow, right? So it's all relative and nobody has to figure it out. Like I said, we plug everything in, the calculator figures it all out for you. But it's beautiful because what you're able to do is to take that money that has grown and now you've got maybe you're putting in $1,000 a month. It's pulling off $7,000 a month in just like 2.5, 3 years. So if you need to draw 1,000 or 500 or 2,000 a month or whatever, you can usually do that and keep your snowball growing, right?
Mhm.
You're still reinvesting everything else that's in there so that you can keep giving yourself raises in the future. It's very cool.
So
Yeah.
for people who are starting early, they're not really necessarily looking to leave the workforce or do what
Yeah.
you did. But this can start out as a side hustle as it builds. What my wife's cousin calls beer money, where
A
you're
lot of beer.
yeah, you're making this little extra money on the side. It's not going to replace your income. You don't have independent financial freedom from this passive income. You still have to work, but it probably if you start in your 20s or 30s, say, then you
Mhm.
have 20 years or so of working where
Mhm.
you're building up this side hustle to the point where the income can replace it. And
Mhm.
so now you're taking more, instead of reinvesting all of it on the side and maybe taking a little bit out every month for beer,
Mhm.
you're reinvesting it, but you get to the point where you don't necessarily have to reinvest it.
Mhm.
Just reinvest the principal and suck off the interest, and you can live off that income into the future.
Yeah. Well, it works a little bit different because you're getting so much principal back that you wouldn't just live off the interest. So here's another beautiful part of this. depending on the type of investment, the type of short-term amortized income investment, they're not all like this, but Prosper's like this, for example, you're getting principal and interest back. So that principal is not even considered income. The IRS does not consider it income. Now think about that. So you're getting, say, $7,000 a month,
Mhm.
and if you would actually be, if you needed to use 7,000, you probably have a lot more coming in. Say you would have like 30, $40,000 a month coming in. So let's say you have 30,000 a month coming in, and you want to live on the seven. So you're taking seven, the rest of it goes back in. That $7,000 a month that you're using, maybe 5,550, 500 is principal and
Mhm.
the other is interest. Well, you're only getting taxed on a small fraction of the money that you're using. I
Mhm.
mean, because the IRS considers it return of principal, even though it wasn't your money, it was the borrowed money that purchased those investments in the first place,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it's a phenomenal thing. So you wouldn't want to necessarily do that. You can live on that and have a lot more money to live on. It has an algorithm that determines how much you can take out
Mhm.
and have it continue to go. Or you can actually use it to buy other investments. So, for example, if you want to buy real estate, right? And we do have a lot of people that love real estate. I think real estate's a great investment.
Mhm.
But you can actually have your income snowball buy your real estate investments for you. So we have a lot of turnkey real estate providers that have reached out to us and like our clients need this because they're able to build a 10 property portfolio in less than half the time that it would take for them to do it the traditional way, like the debt snowball way, or just taking the extra cash and even some of their extra cash and paying them, reaching getting new down payments for the next property and the next property. So it's just a faster method.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So let me skip on down some of my questions because I think we've answered a lot of them. But now, I guess you say this works for individuals as well as business owners. How does this work and help business owners as
Okay.
opposed to people that are wage slaves and working for someone else?
Yeah, so I'm a business owner. I'll tell you, we've used it a number of ways. So you can use it for your business. So your business can have its own income snowball. So you can, and if you do that, here's how you would use it. You would, basically run all this in a calculator. And by the way, what's nice too is, and this is part of the reducing your risk part, the
Mhm.
calculator can tell you if an investment will work and if it will accelerate your date to financial freedom or not. It
Mhm.
wouldn't it be nice to get that information before you invest? You know what I mean? It's like I think people they're just, they run the projections, they're like, okay, this is going to give me this cash flow, but they really just don't have all the other pieces. They haven't done all their due diligence. They don't have a plan A, B, C, or D if that investment doesn't perform as expected. And that's part of the whole package of how all of this works together. So but going back to it, if you're a business owner, what I do is I've been able to use it to buy things like you use it to buy inventory, you use it to hire people. So what we do is we take that line of credit once you've built up some income from the income snowball, and we do what's called a split. So let's say you're at $50,000 on your line of credit at this point. We would take 25,000 and that would go into the fast burning fuel investment or that short-term amortized income investment. The other 25,000 will go to buy your inventory. And because you're at $50,000, that means that you have probably already about 10 to 12 to $15,000 a month in passive income coming in. And that's why your line of credit has increased to about 50,000 or so. So at that point, now you can do the next thing. And so every few months you're able to buy inventory or hire new people. And none of that's coming out of your own pocket. That's coming from your income snowball. So your business, as it's becoming profitable, is making that money.
Mhm.
And then the investments are helping you create new money that's also helping you buy the things that you need. And you don't even have to use the profits to do that. If you want to, you can, but you don't need to because Income Snowball can do that for you. Another way business owners can use it is if you have your own personal income snowball, right? Because that's your other fallback retirement plan. For a lot of business owners, they don't have a 401k or whatever it is, right? They're relying on this business. At one point they're going to maybe sell it and maybe that'll be their retirement. But if you build an income snowball outside of that, What you can do is utilize if your business needs income for not income, it needs to borrow money for something. It would borrow from you. So now you loan that money to the business, and the business makes payments to you over 3 years, for example. And that monthly income that you're getting amortized over 3 years becomes income for your personal income, Snowball. And there's other ways to do it too. It could be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, depending on what makes the most sense for your specific plan. But all of that is mapped out for you by the calculator. And it just, you tell us what the goals are, we plug it in, and we come up with a plan. It's pretty fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's with businesses. I also understand. Now, let me step back for a minute. You talked about a line of credit,
Yes.
and I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly because where the initial capital comes from to
Mhm.
make these micro loans. So are they coming from a
Mhm.
line of credit that you take out and then
Mhm.
you use that
So,
principal to fund the loans while
correct.
making interest only payments on the line of credit?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And so actually you're not even making interest only payments. You're actually making huge principal payments on that interest only line of credit because you're taking the 156 $57 plus your cash flow, and let's say it's $1,000, right? You're putting in $1,000 a month, and the investment's producing 157. That's going to take you less than 5 months. It's going to take you like what, 3.5 months to pay off that $5,000 that you borrowed,
Mhm.
right?
Because it's
So you're
because the money that's coming back to you on the loans far exceeds the amortized monthly payment on the line of credit.
Yes, but you're putting your cash flow, your $1,000 plus the 157
Mm,
against that line. So even though your payment is $15, $20 on the line of credit per month, right?
mm,
You're putting in over, $1,100 a month or almost $1,200 a month. Then after, 3.5 months of paying that off, you're going to do the second investment. You're going to use that same 5,000 again, borrow it, buy the investment. Now you have another $157. You have over $300 a month plus your 1,000 to
okay.
pay off that $5,000 line of credit the second time. So it's going to be faster than the 3.5, 4 months that it took you the first time. That's that snowball. So the first time it takes you 4 months, the next time it takes you 3 months, the next time it takes you 2 months, and so on and so forth to pay off that same size line of credit. And then the calculator will tell you it's time to increase it to 7,500 or 10,000 or whatever it is. And then it will tell you, et cetera, like the next steps. But it's amazing because you know, the discovery of these short-term amortized income investments and the power, how powerful they can be when you utilize them in conjunction with a small amount of leverage and these types of investments, your cash flow to just accelerate purchasing of these assets and really just blowing up your income.
Well, if again, just to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, so you take out a line of credit,
Mhm.
you take that money, you put it into these micro loans that
Mhm.
pay out over 3 years.
Yep.
And then the money comes in and you turn around and you pay off that line of credit in 3 months,
Mhm.
which you means you now replaced all the money you've lent out over 3 years. So the remainder of that period of time is all gravy. So you can
Exactly.
take out another line of credit, make
Mm.
even more micro loans,
Yep.
pay it off over 3 months, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
And faster, right? Because you have twice as much income from that investment coming in, right? The second time you make the investment, the
Mhm.
third time you got 3 times as much income coming in. So that your income snowball keeps getting bigger and bigger. So you got it. You nailed it.
All
But
right.
I have to
I
also
was
say
lost for a while there. It took me.
that yeah, well, no, I'm glad you explained it back to me so I know you understand it. But I
Well,
but I
that's
do
what
have
I'm
to
saying.
say they don't
And I
all
figured
investment.
if I'm explaining it back, hopefully the listeners are saying, "Oh yeah, that's what I thought," or just because they're probably
Yeah.
asking the same question. Uh,
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. But I have to say though that, Prosper is those are microloans. Not all short-term amortized investments are that type of investment. There's
uh,
a lot of different types out there. But I like to use that because people can go and find it, Google it online and see what it's all about. That's just one. And like I said, there's lots of them out there nowadays, and some have nothing to do with loaning money to individuals. But it's a very um, it gives you so many more times the amount of income that you could get from any regular traditional investment.
Hmm.
Like an example I just gave you was it's 5 times on an 8% investment.
Hmm.
And that would be the same as if it was a 6% investment. It's just so many more times because you're getting that principal back and
Hmm.
you're able to utilize that. Here's one more thing on the risk side too to think about. When you invest and you put $5,000 into investment, the principal stays there, and then you're getting your interest payments. What's at risk is that the principal somehow will go away, or that the value of it goes down, right? That's what we're seeing on the stock market, right? People have, X amount of dollars in their 401k, whatever, and then, or their mutual fund, and then the stock market crashes and boom, it goes from $100,000 down to 25,000.
Hmm.
Okay, so your risk in any investment where you're not getting the principal, where the principal just sits somewhere out in the ether and you're getting these interest only payments, when that happens, your principal is at risk. When you're getting a small portion of your principal back each month, that actually reduces your risk because you have less of it that's out there, that you don't know if it's going to come back or not. You have a date certain, you know that this money's coming in, right?
Hmm.
So that is something also to consider when you're looking at risk. So one of the things we help people do is help them understand risk because we're so used to kind of the traditional thinking about, the stock market and that's low risk. And so what we want to show you, what we want to teach people is how to have more control over their own investments
Hmm.
and choosing investments that they have control over. They have control over the interest rate, they have control over, what they're putting it into. And as long as they understand the underlying investment, that actually reduces their risk,
Hmm.
right? The more you understand, the lower your risk is. If you go out there and you buy an investment or a business or anything and you don't know anything about it, it's way riskier than someone that's been in that industry for years, right? Doing the same.
And
Yeah.
also the as far as reducing risk, that if you're lending out money over 3 years and paying back your loan in 3 months,
Yes. Yes.
once your loan is paid back on the line of credit,
Yeah.
then there really isn't any risk, at least on the microloans you made from that original line of credit. You now
Correct.
have a risk-free to an extent
Mhm.
source of income.
Right. Now it's always possible that some of them default a bit, but you got to remember you're going to get, 30 more months of payments. So if some of your payments, if you're supposed to be getting $157 a month, and some months you get 150, and some months actually you'll get more than 157 because people prepay their loans early. That's something that I experienced a lot. So some months you may get $175. And some months you may get 156, 150, 150. When it all averages out to approximately the same, and it doesn't really matter because the net, after you paid that off, you already have doubled the amount of income that you have coming in with that next investment. And then a few months later, tripled. And then a few months later, quadrupled. And it just, it dwarfs it. You're paying it off, not just in 3 months. Now you're paying it off theoretically you could pay it off every month
Mhm.
with the income you're getting. The calculator doesn't allow that for that though, for various reasons, because you need to be able to turn that line of credit a certain amount of times depending on the length of the amortization. So if you're amortized over 2 years, if that's the investments that you're doing, you have to be able to turn that investment over a certain amount of times in that 2 year period. And same with the 3 year or the 5 year, depending on what you're doing. So, but it's yeah, I mean there isn't anything else like it out there, and that's on the calculator. It's pretty fun stuff.
Okay. So, you also have this book that we talked about. How can people get your book, and what can they learn from reading it?
Okay, well, really what I go into is how to create an income snowball and what you have to do before you can create, kind of laying the foundation. So some of the things we talked about like reducing your risk, coming up, having investment criteria in the first place, understanding fast burning fuel, slow burning fuel, understanding all of these different terminologies that I like to use, and also showing what not to do. So I have a lot of stories of what to do and what not to do. And so people can eliminate the risk. And again, you can take this whole system and go out there and find like a crazy investment and throw it in there and you could lose it, right? And so how do you avoid doing that? That's one of the things that I talk about in there. I talk about how to run due diligence and it's what we've been teaching our clients to do for 20 years. And then also having a plan A, B, C, and D for when your investment don't perform as expected. We had a lot of that. I have a lot of stories, a lot of personal stories and stories of others where their investments didn't perform as expected, but because they had those plan A, B, C, and D, they didn't miss a beat. It didn't affect them in any way. It was great. I mean, think about COVID, right? During COVID, people lost their jobs, they lost their businesses, or at least for a while, they had no income.
Mhm.
Our clients were like in such great shape. They had so much income coming in from their snowballs that they were able to live on that income before PPP loans came out, before they were getting their unemployment. People, it was phenomenal. And some people were able to, a lot of them were able to continue growing their snowballs even without their own personal income. So that was huge as well. So you can get it anywhere where books are sold, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, all of that. It's all, you can get it globally. We're available everywhere the books are sold and on our website as well.
All right, so I'll leave some links in the show notes on how to get the book. But obviously, you offer services beyond the book. The book sort of is the primer that explains everything, and after they read it, they say, "Yeah, I think this is for me." How do
Yeah.
they reach out to you so that you can help them?
Well, they can go right to our website and they can, we've got a lot of resources on there as well. But just reach out to one of my wealth coaches for a strategy session because what that will do is they'll be able to get a demo of the income snowball calculator with their own specific numbers in it, which I think is so important. You need to be able to see how will this work for me? Will it work for me? Right. And so, in order for you to see for yourself what it can do, you let the coach know what are your goals, what are why do you want to be financially free or have this extra $2,000? Is it just beer or is it something is it something else? Like what do you want to do?
What's
They'll
your
plug all
why?
that in. They'll plug all that in and then create a plan for you and then you can see, well, is this something that I'm interested in? Would I want to do this? Can I do this? And or not. And so you have that option at that point, but it's that's what the strategy session consists of and I highly recommend that people reach out to us that way. Mhm.
Well, we'll leave some links in the show notes for people to check out on how to get the book and how to reach out to you so that they can create their own income snowball. Well, thank you for
Awesome.
coming on the show. Appreciate it. Sure. I mean, this is new to me, and I'm sure new to our listeners. It's something that's not regularly talked about by financial planners or just finance people. So it's good to have something different. All right. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Mhm.